They used to listen to every word you said. Now, you can barely finish a sentence without being interrupted, ignored, or brushed off like you're some outdated relic. Sound familiar? If you ever looked at your grown child and wondered, where did the respect go? You're not alone. A lot of parents in their 60s, 70s, even 80s are feeling this quiet ache, this shift in the relationship they never saw coming. You spent years raising them, sacrificing for them, loving them with everything you had. And now they talk down to you, dismiss your opinions, or worse, avoid you altogether. But here's the truth they don't tell you. Just because you're older doesn't mean you've lost your voice or your right to be respected. In this video, we're going to talk about 6 powerful things you can do, starting today, to regain that respect, reconnect with your children, and feel proud of the relationship again. And no, it's not about yelling louder, demanding apologies, or playing the guilt card. That doesn't work. And deep down, you already know that. What we're diving into here is deeper, smarter, and honestly, more powerful than you might think. Because respect isn't given because you're older. It's given because you command it, not with fear, but with quiet strength, clear boundaries, and a kind of calm confidence that makes people lean in, not tune out. So let's start with something simple but crucial: how you carry yourself. When children start to lose respect, it's rarely about one moment. It's a pattern. And often, without realizing it, we let that pattern grow. We let the eye roll slide. We let them talk over us, interrupt us, dismiss our thoughts, and we say nothing, maybe because we're tired of arguing or we're afraid of pushing them away. But the problem is, silence teaches them that it's okay to treat us that way. So the first way to regain respect, you stop being passive. That doesn't mean you start shouting or lecturing. It means you start showing up differently. You speak slower, not softer. You keep your tone calm, not cold. And when someone interrupts you, you pause, make eye contact, and say something like, "I wasn't finished." You'd be amazed how powerful that is. Not angry, not emotional, just clear. It sends a message. I still expect to be treated with dignity. And if they walk away, let them. Respect isn't about controlling other people. It's about how you respond to them. The more calmly and consistently you hold your line, the more they'll start to notice a shift, even if they don't say out loud. Now, let's talk about boundaries. Because if you want to feel respected again, you have to set the rules for how you're treated. A lot of parents struggle with this, especially when their children are grown. They feel like they're walking on eggshells, afraid to upset them, afraid they'll pull away even more. But here's the secret most people don't realize. Strong boundaries actually bring people closer. Why? Because they create safety. They create clarity. And deep down, even your adult kids crave that. So if your daughter speaks to you in a condescending tone, you let her know, "I love talking with you, but if you're going to speak to me like that, I'm going to hang up the phone. We can try again later." You're not punishing her. You're protecting your peace. If your son only calls when he needs something, but never asks how you're doing, you don't keep saying yes out of habit or guilt. Instead, you pause and say, "I'd love to help you, but I also need to feel like this relationship isn't one-sided. Can we talk about that?" These are hard conversations, I know, but they matter. Because every time you quietly allow disrespect, you're telling them, this is okay. And every time you speak up with kindness and firmness, you remind them, I may be older, but I'm still me, and I still deserve your respect. Let me give you a quick story. There was a woman named Helen, 72, who told me her son would bark orders at her like she was a teenager. Pick up the kids at 3. Don't feed them that. You need to stop saying those things. It went on for years. She said nothing because she didn't want to cause trouble. One day, she finally said, "I'm your mother, not your assistant. If you want my help, ask respectfully. If not, I'm happy to step back." Was her son angry? Oh yes. For a while, he didn't speak to her. But slowly he came back, and this time he said please. He asked instead of demanded. He began to see her again, because she reminded him who she was. Now that we've laid the foundation, shifting from passive to firm, and learning to hold your ground with kindness, we're ready to go even deeper. Because regaining respect from your children isn't just about what you say. It's also about what you believe about yourself. Regaining respect doesn't start in their heads. It starts in yours. You can't expect your children to treat you like you matter if you don't believe you matter anymore. And I know that might sound a little harsh, but hear me out, because a lot of parents over 60 start to lose that inner confidence. The world moves fast, technology changes, their bodies slow down, and they start to feel invisible, even their own kids. But here's something powerful to remember. Your value doesn't disappear just because you've got gray hair or a few more wrinkles. Your wisdom, your life experience, your presence, it's worth something. It always has been. And when you start acting like you know that, it changes the entire energy of how others respond to you. Think about it. Have you ever seen someone walk into a room and immediately command attention? Not because they're loud, not because they're flashy, but because they move with quiet certainty? That's what self-respect looks like. And your children, whether they're 25 or 55, feel it when it's there. They also feel it when it's missing. So what do? You build it back, bit by bit. You remind yourself of everything you survived, the choices you've made, the lessons you've learned. You stop putting yourself last. You stop over-apologizing. You stop saying, I'm just old, like that's some kind of excuse for being overlooked. And you start showing up in your own life again. Start with small things. Speak up more often. Get dressed in a way that makes you feel good, even if you're not going anywhere. Stop explaining your choices unless someone really needs to know. When you take yourself seriously, the world starts to as well. Now let's talk about something that really makes a difference. Listening, but with a twist. See, a lot of parents feel disrespected because their kids won't listen to them. But what if I told you one of the fastest ways to get your kids to respect your voice is to first show them you respect theirs? It sounds backwards, I know, but stay with me. When a child, especially an adult child, feels unheard, they often push harder, talk louder, or worse, shut down completely. And when that happens, the relationship turns into a power struggle. But what if, instead of fighting for control, you leaned in with curiosity? Try this the next time you're having a conversation that starts to feel tense or disrespectful. Instead of reacting right away or correcting them, take a breath and say, help me understand where you're coming from. Or, that's an interesting point. Tell me more. You'd be surprised how quickly the energy shifts when people feel truly heard. It doesn't mean you agree with them. It means you're creating space for a real conversation. And once that door is open, it becomes a two-way street. Respect flows both ways. There's something incredibly disarming about someone who listens calmly and fully, especially when tension is high. It makes the other person pause. It lowers their defenses. And often, it makes them more willing to hear you out in return. I once heard a story from a gentleman named Maurice, 68, who said his daughter constantly treated him like he didn't understand the modern world. Every time he tried to give advice, she'd roll her eyes or say, Dad, times have changed. One day, instead of getting upset, he said, You're right, times have changed. Can you help me understand what's different for you? That moment, simple, open, genuine, led to the first real conversation they'd had in months. And from that point on, she stopped treating him like he was stuck in the past, because he showed her that he was still curious, still growing, still open. Listening doesn't mean giving up your voice. It means you're smart enough to know that sometimes the best way to be heard is to hear first. Now, we've talked about standing your ground. We've talked about building self-respect and listening to build connection. But there's another piece of this puzzle, and it's one that a lot of people overlook. Consistency. Respect doesn't grow from a single conversation. It grows from patterns, from what you consistently allow and what you consistently model. If one day you set boundaries, but the next you back down, if you say you want respect but still answer every last-minute request, it sends mixed signals. And people learn quickly that your words don't always match your actions. Think about how you want to be treated. Then ask yourself, am I reinforcing that every day? Because every time you reinforce your boundaries with grace, every time you respond instead of react, you're teaching your kids how to treat you. It doesn't mean you need to be perfect. It just means you need to be steady. Because respect isn't earned in big, dramatic moments. It's earned in those everyday choices. The phone call you didn't take right away because you needed rest. The opinion you voiced at dinner, even when it wasn't popular. The pause you took before responding to a sharp comment so you could speak with strength instead of anger. These small moments build a foundation of a new dynamic, one where you don't just hope for respect, you expect it, and you live like you do. There comes a moment in every parent's life, especially as we get older, when we stop asking, why don't they respect me? And we start asking something more powerful, what kind of example am I setting right now? Because here's the hard truth. Respect doesn't come from your title. It comes from your behavior. You could be the most loving, devoted parent in the world, but if you allow disrespect, if you shrink yourself, if you act like your worth depends on their approval, they will treat you that way. But the moment you start showing up with quiet authority, everything begins to shift. Now, I want to talk to you about something that might feel uncomfortable, but needs to be said. Sometimes, the way our children treat us isn't just about them. It's about what we've allowed for far too long. And I say this with nothing but love and compassion, because I know you did your best. You gave your heart. You made sacrifices. You were there. But somewhere along the way, maybe you apologized too often just to keep the peace. Maybe you said yes when you want to say no. Maybe you taught them, without even meaning to, that your needs come last. And now they believe you. But here's the beauty of this moment. You get to rewrite that. You don't need their permission to start treating yourself differently. You don't need a green light to set new expectations. You just need to decide that the old story, the one where you stay silent and small, is over. Because here's the thing that people forget. Children, no matter how old, are always watching. Not just when they're 5 and learning how to tie their shoes. Even now, at 30, 40, 50, they're still watching. Watching how you carry yourself, how you react, how you stand up or don't. And when they see you handle tough situations with grace instead of guilt, when they see you protect your energy, speak your truth, and stay grounded, they start to realize, wait a minute, Mom isn't here to be my emotional punching bag. Dad isn't just going to bend over backward anymore. They're not just parents, they're people. And that realization, that's when respect starts to grow. Let me share a quick story. A woman named Denise, 74, told me that for years her daughter would dump her emotional problems on her, call at all hours, complain, even blame her for things that happened decades ago. Denise felt exhausted, guilty, and drained, but she didn't want to make things worse. So she just took it until one day, after another emotionally charged phone call, she hung up, sat down, and said out loud to herself, "This isn't love, this is punishment." The next time her daughter called, Denise said, "I love you, but I won't let you talk to me like that anymore. If you want to talk, we can, but if it turns into yelling, I'll be ending the call." And that's exactly what she did. The first time, her daughter hung up angry. The second time, she tried again, but this time with a softer voice. It didn't fix everything overnight, but it was a turning point. And you know what Denise said to me later? For the first time in years, I felt free. See, here's what most people don't understand. Regaining respect isn't about confrontation. It's about clarity. It's about drawing a line, not to push people away, but to remind them where you stand. And once you do that, you get to reclaim something that's even more valuable than respect, your peace. You start sleeping better, breathing easier, walking into conversations with your head held a little higher, your shoulders a little lighter. You stop rehearsing every word. You stop over-explaining. You stop letting your entire emotional world be tied to someone else's mood. And your children, they might resist at first. They might push back, but deep down they'll feel it. That shift, that strength. And eventually, maybe quietly, maybe without saying it out loud, they'll start to treat you differently because you'll be different. That's the key moment in this journey. Not when they change, but when you do, you start to realize, I can't control their tone, but I can control my response. I can't make them appreciate me, but I can stop over-giving to earn it. I can't rewrite the past, but I can write the rest of the story. And friend, that's where the real power lies. Now, I know this path isn't easy. It takes courage to shift the dynamics of a lifetime. It takes patience to break old habits, especially the ones built on guilt or fear of being left out. but every small step counts. Every time you speak calmly instead of reacting in frustration. Every time you choose self-respect over silence. Every time you decide, today I matter too. Those moments build something that lasts longer than one conversation. They build legacy, not just for you, but for your family. Because when you reclaim your dignity, you don't just teach your children how to treat you. You teach them how to treat themselves. You model what healthy boundaries look like. You show them that love doesn't mean self-sacrifice. That kindness isn't the same as being a doormat. That respect isn't just for the young and strong. It's for everyone. Even you, especially you. By now, you probably realize something important. Gaining respect from your children isn't about demanding it. It's about becoming a version of yourself that naturally receives it. And that's exactly where we're headed next. Because after everything we've talked about, finding your voice, building boundaries, restoring your self-worth, there's still one thing left to do, and it's the most powerful of all. Lead by example with quiet strength. When your children raise their voice, you lower yours. When they dismiss your opinion, you hold it with even more conviction. When they try to bait you into a power struggle, you don't engage, you rise above. Because nothing demands respect more than someone who refuses to be pulled into drama. Think about it. When you see someone respond with calm under pressure, when they speak with purpose, not to win an argument, but to stand in their truth, it changes how you see them. That's what we're aiming for here. Not to control our kids, not to win every conversation, but to carry ourselves in a way that says, I know who I am. I've lived enough life to stop chasing approval. And that kind of self-assuredness, it's magnetic. There's a man named Gerald, 81. He told me something that stuck with me ever since. He said, I used to beg for respect. Then one day I realized I was the elder. I didn't need to beg for what I already deserved. I just needed to act like it. And from that moment on, he stopped over-explaining, stopped trying to justify himself, started making choices that serve him first. Not because he didn't love his kids, but because he finally loved himself enough to stop settling for less than kindness. And that brings me to something else that's easy to overlook. Forgiveness. Sometimes, the path to being respected again includes letting go of what hurt you. Not because it was okay, not because they didn't hurt you, but because carrying resentment is like drinking poison and expecting them to get sick. It doesn't work. If your child disrespected you, talked down to you, or made you feel small, you have every right to feel angry. But at some point, if you want peace, you have to choose healing over holding a grudge. And that doesn't mean pretending it never happened. It means you look at the pain, you acknowledge it, and then you say, I'm done letting this control me. Because here's the truth. You can't force your children to respect you, but you can live in a way that demands it without ever raising your voice. So what does that life look like? It looks like making your own needs a priority, not an afterthought. It looks like taking care of your health, your mind, your home. It looks like reconnecting with friends, pursuing hobbies, and creating a life you enjoy outside of being mom or dad. Because one of the most surprising things that inspires respect is when your kids see that you don't need their approval to feel whole. That's when the dynamic shifts. That's when the guilt trips stop working. That's when they start seeing you not as someone who's always available to fix their problems, but as someone who has a life worth honoring. And you know what's beautiful about that? When they start seeing you that way, they also start coming to you, not just with their needs, but with their hearts. They ask for your opinion. They check in just to say hi. They thank you more often. They speak softer. They listen longer. And they start to carry themselves with a little more grace because they're following your lead. And even if they never fully come around, you'll still have your peace. Because your value isn't measured by their behavior. It's measured by your being, by the life you've lived, the lessons you've learned, and the dignity you refuse to lose. So let's take a moment and breathe. If you're someone who's been struggling with this, feeling disrespected, unseen, maybe even forgotten, I want you to know you're not alone and you're not powerless. Every single day is another chance to take your power back. Not through control, not through confrontation, but through clarity, calm, and courage. You are not a burden. You are not too much. You are not less than because you've gotten older. You are a whole, wise, worthy person who deserves to be spoken to with kindness, listened to with care, and treated with dignity. And if no one else has said that to you lately, let me say it now. You matter. And it's never too late to remind the world of that. So here's what I want you to do. If something in this video spoke to you, if even one line made you pause, reflect, or feel a little more hopeful, leave a comment below and share it. What resonated with you? What's one small step you're going to take this week to stand a little taller? I'd love to hear from you. Your stories inspire others who might be feeling the same way. But staying silent. And if you found this helpful, give it a like. Subscribe if you haven't already. We got more videos coming your way, all designed to help you live stronger, speak clearer, and feel more respected in every season of life. Because here's the truth. You don't have to settle for being tolerated. You can be honored, and not just for what you've done, but for who you are. Here's to living your best life at any age. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.